What is up, my tricksters? It's your fellow neighborhood Yu-Gi-Oh superhero back again. I'm going to be talking about my experience with the Fort Worth Regional from this past weekend. So it was an experience. I'm going to be talking about my losses. I'm going to be talking about where I think things went wrong, that kind of thing. And the idea is that maybe you guys will learn from it. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about why I didn't have as much fun at this event as I think I would have had in previous ones. Yeah. So before we get into that, though, if you guys want to support this channel, the best way you can do that is to go to my Your Playmats link and get you guys some custom sleeves, just like these. And then they'll put any artwork you want on them. You'll get 10% off if you click the link. And my discount code is, I believe is right next to the link. It's all in the link tree in the description. So go down there, click on that stuff, support the channel. You also can check out my spring store and get stuff with, my my logo on it. Let everybody know that you're a trickster. Anyway, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video. So I was at the regional in Fort Worth. I'm sure Team Bortle has had a bunch of stuff that's out there, and he's the Flaunderies was just kicking ass up there, and that was all really well and good. I took scrap dinosaurs, which I am still on. When I was leaving the place, I was saying things like I should have stuck with Shaddoll Dino because that's what I'm used to. But when I got home, I was relooking the deck, and I was like, you know what? I see there are some spots here where I could make adjustments. So I'm still on it, and I think I'll just keep tweaking it. I mean, that's what I did with my Shaddoll Dino deck, is I just kept tweaking it till it worked for me. And I think I could do the same thing with the scrap dinos, which is actually surprisingly a very different beast, especially since I've actually only been really experimenting with it for like a week before that event, which I do think is a part of the products of my losses. That was one thing. Another thing that I was noticing was I was making mistakes as a player, and one of the things that I really had to think about when it came to my losses that after the event was over is how much of it was pure dumb luck, how much of it was my fault, and how much of it was like my opponent's fault. Luckily, most of my opponents were genuinely nice guys. It was very refreshing to have opponents that weren't kind of rude or underhanded. I that was refreshing. I didn't face anybody like that this whole event. Everybody was polite. Everybody was clear about what they were doing in the game. Nobody was slow playing. The one player I did have that I thought was going a little slow, it was kind of a situation. He just kind of was like, it was a forgivable situation. It wasn't like it wasn't any malice involved in it. So it was refreshing. There was no, which is kind of new for me, because every time I've played this game, even at a local levels, there's always like a handful of guys that are just like being underhanded and shit, and it drives me nuts. But this event was luckily that was not the case, and I was very pleased about that. And so a lot of my losses did come down to being my fault. Like, for example, I was up against a Tri-Brigade player, and I forgot Lancia was the perfect side for that, and I had Lancia in my sideboard. I felt really dumb. Another player, did a move, and I was like, and I just let it go, and then I realized when I looked at my hand, I was holding an Ash Blossom, which would have stopped his whole line of play, and I'm like, oh my god, you're a dumbass! So, I had a lot of that happen, and also the night before I didn't sleep well, so I want you guys to learn from my mistakes, get a good night's sleep, alright? That is the biggest thing. Don't decide to go to these events last second. That's another thing I did. Don't do that. And I'd known about it for for a week and a half that this event was happening, and I went full goob and just was like, okay, fine, I'll go. Like Friday night, the night before the event. Oh, it was horrible. Now, that were some of my losses, and then other losses were just there was just nothing I could do. Um, when you're staring at a handful of normal summons and you're playing a dinosaur deck, like, believe it or not, a brick hand is opening triple Oviraptor and, like, no follow-up plays. It's a brick. It's a brick. And I think that's a brick in any deck, really. If you open like triple Stratos, or you'd open triple of the any deck that just your starter card but no follow up plays, it's a brick hand. So and that happened. It happened. It was a thing that happened. And another thing that I wasn't prepared for was the sheer variety of decks that were at this event, because on top of that you had a new set and a ban list. Between those two things, it was impossible to prepare for this list. Another thing that I noticed was, like, I mentioned this to one of my opponents who was playing like an Eldritch zombie deck. With his deck in particular, I felt like I was carrying a big. If this was a duel, like in a battle between two knights or something, he was dual wielding swords, and I had one big heavy broadsword that was too heavy for me to be using, and I'm going, yeah. That's how I described our duel in the game. Because that's what it felt like. It felt like I was swinging a weapon that was too heavy for me, and he was just like, ha 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 ha, I am the fastest dude on the planet. And I was just there like, that's what that felt like. And then I was up against a zombie world Eldritch deck, which I was already at a disadvantage at. Like, hardcore, because zombies are like, oh, are you playing a type-based deck? So it's very much like, it was very stressful. But my opponent was a very friendly person. I enjoyed every interaction with that person. He was just lovely to hang around. The next thing that was just one of those things. It was one of those formats. And I kind of knew that this format was kind of a little up in the air, but I still was expecting Sword Soul, Despia variants, and Fluanderies. That's what I expected. And I played, I want to say, like 2 Despia players and a Sword Soul player out of all of the games, and the rest, it was everything else. It was Gravekeeper Stun, it was zombies, it was ABC, it was some kind of Drytron deck. It was everything was all. I didn't face the same deck twice the whole day. It was just like, what am I playing against right now? It was wild. And shoutouts to Pheromone. He was probably the most positive experience about that. It was because it was good to catch up with an old friend and talk about content creating with somebody who really gets it. Like, I have my friends here in the Yu-Gi-Oh space, and I can talk to them about the game, but sometimes when I'm talking to them about it from the content creating aspect, it becomes less about, it's more like I'm just talking about this foreign concept to them. Is what it feels like when I'm talking to a lot of my friends who don't make content. So so it was really nice to catch up with somebody who really understands, and what that's like, and the life that we've chosen to live. And it's, so it was very nice to just catch up with an old friend, somebody who is a fellow content creator who understands those those behind the scenes struggles. But I think the biggest reason why I didn't have fun at this event might have something to do with COVID. Not because I caught it or anything, or had to wear a mask all day. I was fine with that. I was wearing a mask throughout the entire pandemic. In fact, I still keep it on me just in case when I'm out in public. The point that I want to get at is, I think one of the biggest reasons why I was having trouble with this event is there was a lot of people in there, and I hadn't been around that many people in like 2 years. I took the COVID situation very like very seriously, and I still do. I went and got vaccinated. I wear the masks. I'm not really comfortable in large groups of people anymore, and I think that has kind of warped my brain a little bit because like the whole time I was there, it was like the back of my head was on fire. Is the only way I could describe it, and I think that I may have some type of anxiety. Um, I managed to power through and not like just being like needing a bag or something. I managed to not to do that, but I think one of the other hardest parts about this event was, and this is maybe just something I'll have to grapple with and get used to being around people again. But that was one of the biggest things, is because it was like the back of my head was like, warning, danger, you know what I mean? The whole time. And and I joke about these things a little bit because I'm dealing with them, and I need the humor to make because humor makes big problems seem like smaller problems, if that makes any explanation to y'all. So that, because that might explain some of the jokes in my skit videos. Humor's how I kind of deal with this very stressful world around me, and and maybe that was what it was for me with this event. I think that was the biggest challenge for me, was trying to play Yu-Gi-Oh while the back of my head feels like it's mentally on fire. It's like, that's the only way I can describe it. It's like it's like the back of my head has this like like a warning, or like like a spidey sense, if that makes any sense, for like Spider-Man. But it was like so I was uber stressed out, more than I normally would, playing the game like at locals or something. And I didn't even play against, and here's the thing, I played against decks I was familiar with, that I kind of knew how to play against, but that little like back of my head just alarm going off made it really hard to concentrate. And I kind of wonder if, like like I said, if because of the whole like isolation thing that I did for 2 years, maybe had some kind of effect in that. So like I said, it's just something I'm gonna have to get back into. It's gonna be something that I deal with, and I figure I'd throw it out there for you guys. So maybe that maybe if you're struggling with it too, you're not alone. If you're a Yu-Gi-Oh player and you want to go back to these big events, but your back of your head feels like it's gonna explode, you're not the only one, I promise. And then and for the mistakes of the game, of playing the game that I made, maybe some of you guys will learn from that as well. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that I gave you something you can learn from, and yeah, I will catch you in the next one. Peace.